I'm Lindsay Goss. I am an assistant professor of theater at Temple University, and I am the writer and director of Group Project. Yeah, so the premise is, probably the best way to talk about it is as a premise. So the premise is pretty simple. There are some students who have to take this big test, very high stakes test, and in various ways the day is going very wrong. Things aren't as they ought to be. They have a certain set of expectations about what this test might involve, and they're wrong. Well, so there were a couple of givens. We thought we were going to do a different show that was set in a classroom, and so I ended up basically with a cast, with a classroom, and I decided to run with that as I thought about what we might do. I think a lot about this generation. As a college professor, I think about this generation a lot, what's been sort of laid at their feet, what they're grappling with, just how much stuff they have to process on a daily basis and worry about or not worry about. I was interested in exploring what that means, what it looks like, maybe what it feels like. It's something I think about a lot. It's sort of continuous, right? Like we don't ever cut from scene to scene. We don't ever move further in time than just the next moment. So it's really just this slice of experience of them trying to take this test. So that's basically the structure. It's a group of people trying to do a thing, and they keep trying to do the thing until the end. So some of the found text or material is kind of the ephemera of teenagedom, right? So popular representations of teenagers, so like John Hughes movies, some other more recent films. One of the fun things was that I was asking the cast for their references, and I had to go watch a number of these things because they weren't my references. So that's some of the found text. There's some others I don't want to give it away because it's not important for people to know or recognize, although I assume that everybody will recognize something, but probably not everything of these found materials. But you don't have to in order for it to work, and I'm actually really interested in the way that text that you can kind of tell is from somewhere else, even if you don't know where it's from, it does something to the texture of the world, of the performance, of the dialogue. And then there is this one other primary source, which is the play Fuente Ovejuna, which is a Spanish Golden Age play by Lope de Vega, which involves a group of peasants rising up against a totalitarian ruler. So that's been fun to play with as well. And there are relationships between that and other things that happen in the play. Yeah, when we sort of realized we needed to switch gears and do something different, I thought, something devised, the people in the room will build this, and that definitely has happened, but that was at the end of the semester, and then it was the summer, and I was like, oh, I actually have to write something. And I didn't initially plan on writing something so fully, partly because that's not something I've done a lot of. Even though I've made performance works, it's often been with a collaborator, and it's been much more the two of us in the room building it together. But it just sort of happened, and I found that I was enjoying it and that I was constructing this world that I was really excited to explore. So we actually came into the rehearsal process with a full draft of a play, but there has just been so much world building that has happened with the cast. We had a couple of workshop days that I found we'd take a break and they were talking, and I found that I just wanted to listen to them talk. I wanted to keep listening to them talk. Because it just felt like this window into this other world, right? That, isn't totally foreign to me, that I'm not totally cut off from. But I actually think that, in the 20 years since I was their age, things have shifted more radically than I can even really comprehend. And the stresses and pressures and sort of constant bombardment with information, constant requirement that you produce sort of content about your life, that I think is totally different. And so just listening to them then was sort of informing some of the revisions I was making. Well, I hope above all else that they enjoy it and find it entertaining and pleasurable. Like, that's number one. I think sometimes experimental work, which, I mean, this is I don't feel like it's that crazy, but it's definitely, it's not a realist play. But I hope nobody will, let that put them off, because even though I would say my work probably falls generally in the more sort of experimental category, that the most important thing to me is that it is pleasurable to watch, that it is funny, that it is engaging, that ideally it also, feels meaningful, or like you think about something you didn't think about before, or you see something you didn't see before. So, I don't know, yeah, I hope people feel like this was a really good way to spend 90 minutes, and that they have questions that I'm not going to answer, but that they might. I don't know, and that they maybe, I guess the one thing I would say is that maybe I'm interested in anybody who doesn't totally have empathy for this generation, maybe has a little more, and that maybe this generation feels a little seen. I don't know, those last two ones that'd be great if that happened. It's an amazing cast. The cast has been amazing. They have worked so hard. They're still working so hard. I'm asking to do things that I think are, I'm asking them to do things or sort of approach performance in a way that I think is a little bit different. It's certainly different than what they were hoping they were going to do with the other show. Like, I know that it's a little bit of a bait and switch, because that, I think, was a play much more in a sort of realist vein. They felt really attached to those characters already, which I completely understand. And I haven't given them like a replacement for that, mostly because I'm not, prior to writing this, I wasn't a playwright, so doing something like that in a couple months was gonna be pretty challenging. But they've really taken up the challenge, and I think found their way into this other kind of world. And I'm really excited to keep working on it.